Inequality and violence are the problem, and love is the answer. None, I think, would disagree with that sentiment. None would dispute it. But how do we act on it? How do we make love the basis of our law and national culture? Until now, no solution has been forthcoming. In part because it devolves on the problem of how do we love? How do we teach love? We can love effortlessly a pet or a child, even foolishly. But how do we love a social rival or national enemy? It just doesn't seem possible. And so we as a nation remain dependent on inequality and violence. I said, until now. Love can be taught. Love can be abundant in society, even infinite. And in a policy paper addressed to our democratic leaders, I explain how. We now go to the scene of a bar in which I read this policy letter and organized a vote, so that this policy can go to our leaders as a popular mandate. The vote was, of course, unanimous. The American voting body was with one spirit that night. Of course, because none would disagree that love is the answer.
And again, because right now, we've got Cincinnati Hibbard!
Well, thank you, Glenn, for thanking us. Payment in advance. Valentine's Day has passed, but the theme is still love. Christmas has passed, but the meaning of the season is still charity toward the less fortunate. Tonight, I am going to read a letter. This letter contains an idea for a change in policy. This box here contains 50 copies of this letter, addressed to 50 members of Congress, and a can of kerosene. I'm going to read this letter, and you are going to vote. If you vote in favor of this policy, I will seal this letter and send the 50 so that Congress can do your legislative business. If you vote against, well, bonfire to the beach. Carlos is here to document this vote so that Congress can see, and so that those Americans that weren't able to attend, there are a few, will see you and hear you. Dated February 14, 2018, 10:45 a.m. Dear Congresspersons, Secretaries, governors, school board members. Individualism, self-interest, profit maximization, selfishness, and sociopathy, I say. Isolation, the pained existence of individualism. Because when you are an individual, everyone is your enemy. The breakdown of civil society, the breakdown of communities, the breakdown of the American family, the divorce rate, the suicide rate, the rate of murder. Competition! Winner takes all, and losers take nothing. A fixed game, they say. Rapacious capitalism. Racism. Sexism. Ableism. Partisanship. The hierarchy of beauty. Xenophobia. Hate. Anger. Resentment. Bitterness. Pessimism. Hopelessness. Anxiety for the future. Fear. Social tension. Civil strife. Class warfare. Civil war. Revolution. Despotism. Kingdom. Kingdom. Kingdom come. Darkness. The ills of our times, friends. The ills of our times. The ills of our times, friends. They all come down. They all come down. They all come down to a lack of empathy. Empathy! Hatred, sadness, fear. The ills of our times all come down to a lack of empathy for our neighbors, for strangers, for newcomers, for the poor, a lack of empathy, for the homeless, a lack of empathy, for animals, a lack of empathy. In these times, we lack empathy for our competitors, for our rivals, for our enemies, who are numerous and ever growing in number. And indeed, we lack empathy for our friends and our family members and our partners. All our ills and spiritual sickness come down to a lack of empathy for the other. And I'm talking about such an empathy. Such an empathy that can only be got by living a day in the life of another. Albeit temporarily. Living their condition. Walking a mile in their shoes. You must know the history of the other. You must know their personal story. You must know their present options. And you must live their condition. Act their actions. Think their thoughts. And believe. Truly believe in the righteousness of your enemies' actions, as they truly do. Such an empathy, such a knowledge, understanding, that can only come from living a day or a week in the life of another, it never fails. It never fails. It never fails to achieve empathic breakthrough to the other. Living a day or week in the life of a stranger, a neighbor, a friend, or a class enemy never fails to achieve empathy. Break down walls, span gaps, form a line, a link, a connection, the foundation for a new relationship on renegotiated terms of equality, on terms of love. Love for the other. Love for thy enemy. Living a day or a week in someone else's life, it teaches us about the handicaps and unfair disadvantages of the other, and therefore about the corresponding blessings and unfair advantages in our own lives. Therefore, empathy inspires gratitude and generosity and a hatred of the privileges of class and remorse for past actions and past inactions, and a desire to change, to be change. Empathy inspires an authentic advocacy for the other. It never fails to achieve these things. Perhaps because by understanding the other, by for a time being the other, we hereafter identify with the other, with their interests, with their pain, and with their pleasure. Although we may pass out of their condition after a day or a week, part of our hearts stay with them. Hereafter, we feel as though we are one of them, as though we are one with them. I'm here to make a proposition to you, the American people. It is a proposition that will relieve every red line and fault line and battle line and border and category that divide us from each other. I propose that we implement day in a life empathy training in public schools, K through 12. That empathy be the fourth R of education. I propose that we implement day in a life programs in our democratic schools. Because everyone needs to be taught this empathy. And they need to be taught it early so that they can have it and use it all the days of their lives. Democratic education is the way. Now, because empathy for the other is the emotional basis for golden rule morality, some educational traditionalists would object, arguing that empathy training is properly the domain of a religious education. But as I've shown, in all I've said, do unto others as they would do unto you is also the emotional basis of democracy. Empathy is a faculty highly trained in every citizen of our diverse democracy. Therefore, it is the proper ground of mass education, the mission of which is to train our children up into the citizens of this democracy. Empathy training, empathy should be one of the R's of education. And it should be the first R. That being said, a day a weaker life than the other can easily be fitted into existing school curricula. It can be fitted into civics classes, social studies, history, English, religion, anthropology, into any subject in which the student is already tasked with studying other people. In other places, in other times, or here now. And that's not just conjecture. We know it can be fitted because it has. In the pilot programs of bravely independent teachers. And the results they have gotten with their students are all I have promised and more. All right. Yeah. I'm still talking to senators. Empathy training can be implemented in any of these classes, and it should be implemented in all these classes. Empathy training in this method should start early, be established early, and maintained throughout the 13 years of compulsory education, broadened to the full extent of its application, and deepening to the full extent of its sophistication as the child develops to the age of 18 and a right to vote. I'll now give some examples. Day-in-the-life projects, children can undertake at different developmental grade steps. 1. In the season of Thanksgiving, 7th grade social studies classes might be given a course of study in the issues of societal homes, paired with a field trip to a kitchen, which they serve a meal and conduct structured interviews with homeless children their own age. This can be paired with an introduction to gratitude journal, one of the keys to happiness, and opportunities to continue their advocacy on their own. Second example. A day-in-the-life project suited to 8th grade students is a school play a la Hamilton, in which the children are purposefully cast against their own gender or racial or economic type, or cast in a role they would identify as a villain. This play is an opportunity to introduce our children to the actor's method of empathy for a character, in which the other is researched thoroughly, observed without judgment, sympathetically, in an earnest attempt to understand their motivations in a process of becoming. Journaling can be a means of auditing and deepening the empathic experience. In optional second stages, the actor's method of empathic becoming can be applied towards some real-world other or some villain in the student's life. 3. In the 9th grade, if not earlier, students around the nation will be ready to undertake their first week in a life project. An excellent starting point is taking on a physical disability for the period of a week. Blindness or muteness, loss of the use of their arms or their legs for a week. This should be paired with a reading of journals written to those adapting to the disability, as well as narratives of historic figures that adapted to and overcame their disability in a process of achieving the greatest success. Students can write journals about their own perceived handicaps and how they too might be overcome. Five, last example. In the 11th and the 12th grades, emphasis might be shifted from teacher-guided to student-guided empathy projects. So we might foster in our children the independent empathy that will characterize their adulthood. Then they will be ready to assume the vote and to change the world. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if all American children in the rising generation had these empathic breakthroughs, along with 100 others in their formative years? Can you imagine what a nation this would be? There are countless other ideas for empathy projects in K-12 education, and teachers and districts are at liberty to choose those that suit their priorities and the existing goals of their curricula. The only requirement, I should say, is that the tens and the scores of daily life projects that they do choose to be programmatic, loosely coordinated, to develop young adults that have empathically identified with the interests of all Americans. All Americans across the boundaries and divisions of gender, religion, race, class, disability, and political orientation. That we not graduate new Americans to the national voting right until they have identified with the cause of Indians and refugees and foreigners and prisoners, the homeless, the mentally disabled, the chronically sick, and the veterans of American wars. Not until they are broadly tolerant and respectful of others. Not until they know how to negotiate and compromise with others. Not until they share resources, share power with others. Not until they understand that though we may fight, we are all one American family. And that deep down, we love each other. We are. And we do. That is my proposal. I propose such an education. I propose such a people as are worthy of the great American Constitution. Our children. Now, by acclamation, by a cry of yea or nay, on the issue of daily life empathy training in K through 12 education, how do you, the people, vote? All those in favor?
Yeah!
Again? All those in favor? Again, so that the powerful can hear your voices. All those in favor? Now, all those against. The ayes have it. Congress, school boards, public servants, are you listening? The people have spoken. That's apropos. We will teach our children how to love each other. We will teach them empathy. If you'll excuse me, I have to go to the post office.
Now that we have our popular mandate for empathy education, now that the video document of that vote has been edited and uploaded online for the people and the state to see, we are now ready to send the policy letters out. I, your representative, shall carry out the office.
Education in America is controlled by the state and by the local school board. My mailing strategy with the 50 is to mail the empathy education proposal to the 50 most important California state congresspersons and California school boards. My thinking is that small districts follow large districts, and small states follow large states. Where California goes, so goes the nation, is my thinking. And America leads the world. That is my strategy with just 50 letters. Let's hope it's catching like wildfire. You know, the mailbox is a kind of ballot box. You vote with your letters. So vote. Vote by sending a letter or a postcard to your congressperson or school board in favor of empathy education. Vote. Vote for empathy. Vote for love. Thank you, and God bless.